Even the best expired domains can fail if they've been set up incorrectly, and your PBN's longevity can really be determined by how it is set up and the content and the structure of the website. So it's really important to get this right from the beginning. In this episode of the PBN Guide series, I'll be showing you how to go about registering your domain, setting up the DNS and the hosting, and getting it filled with content in such a way that all of the websites in the PBN are indistinguishable from genuine, normal websites. A PBN can really thrive or fail based on how it's set up. So it's really important to get this right from the beginning. So continue watching to see how I go about this process and get dozens of pages indexed within a few days of registering a domain. Check out my domain and website setup standard operating procedures document in the description. This is a great little guide to check that you are hitting all of the major areas of diversity while setting up your PBN websites. Diversity really is key when setting up every part of your PBN, right from registering your domain through to the hosting and what content you're putting on the website. When it comes to registering your domain, you should have at least 3 to 5 different registrars. Some of the main ones are used by most websites, so it's not a problem if there is some overlap as you start to increase the size of your PBN. But certainly at the very beginning, make sure that you are splitting your domains across multiple different registrars. When you've registered the domain, you need all of your DNS settings to be as varied as possible. Obviously, your A and AAA records are going to be of a similar format of IP to domain. But for things like setting up your email servers, setting up SSL certificates and things like that, we shouldn't be sticking to a standard template. By all means, go to an AI and ask it for some genuine DNS records. You can maybe put in some that are a bit of a red herring, that don't really mean anything. So DNS settings may be something that you're unfamiliar with, but you will need to get used to these and varying them up for every website that you're creating. For hosting, there's a lot more choices than you can shake a stick at. To find the best deal, normally you're just going to have to Google at any one time, because the best deals tend to move from different providers depending on what they've got going on at the time. Black Fridays are always a good time to get a year's worth of domain registrar and hosting booked in. So be on the lookout for that. So just make use of the deals as and when they're available, really. Make sure that you're taking into account the cost for the first year at least, because you're going to have these not just for a couple of months, you're going to want them for the year. So factor that in when you're deciding who's the best fit. And possibly the most important is the content of the website itself. You can always do this quickly by using a template and just changing the header and the title of the website and things like that. This is a terrible idea. This will be the biggest footprint going, and the search engines will notice this, so do not do it. Make sure every website has its own style, its own look, its own feel. Make sure that the content is natural and different and unique. So if you're getting an AI to write the content for you, make sure that you're telling it to write in a different voice, use different type of vocabulary, but just make sure that everything's more detailed. More varied. So we are going to be going into this in a lot more detail later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. That's probably the most important part, is the content. So make sure you get that right from the beginning. One common flaw that actually scuppered a lot of the earlier PBNs was that they used the same registrar to register all of their domains. So having a few domains pointing to your website from the same registrar, okay, that is going to happen. With so many people using the likes of GoDaddy or NameSilo, that there is going to be a lot of overlap. But just don't make it an obvious footprint in your PBN, because certainly early on when you're promoting your website, you're not going to have a great many domains. So if every domain that's linking to your website is registered at the same registrar, that's going to be a huge red flag. So the search engines will know roughly the distribution to expect for a website. So just spread it out. don't make it obvious. You might be wondering how to vary the domain registrars. You might not know that many. So in this instance, in a lot of cases, Google is your friend. We have search engines, we can just search for them and find, if you were to put in registered domain or register.com, the websites coming up near the top are going to be reputable. Okay, there's really not that many that you need to be too worried about that are going to be showing up in the searches. So just go for whoever has a good deal at the time. You might even find sometimes that this is cheaper to get the domain registered with your hosting. You might find that you get the first year's free or free, it'll be included in the price. But that can sometimes be the best way to get a good deal for your first year. When you're registering the domain, you are supposed to give genuine details for the registrant. You can choose to do that. I'm not going to advise you to put incorrect details in there, but if you can, vary the contact details for the domain, for all of your different domains, just to make sure that they aren't tied back to you. Now, Whois Privacy should withhold a lot of this information, but it never hurts to just vary things up, even while still being as honest as possible. So when you're setting up the contact details for the contact email for the domain, you should always use a genuine email address, but just use a different address for each domain. To make things easier for tracking later on, you can redirect each of the emails to one address and just monitor that one address. That way you're always going to receive any emails from potential customers, buyers, advertisers that might want to be on there, or even authorities that occasionally might need to get in touch with you for whatever reason. So for compliance, you should always have a reachable email address and just redirect them over to a central email address. When setting up a PBN, ultimately you're going to have multiple websites. You do not want them to all be registered within the same few days. Now, if it's going to be an ongoing thing and you're going to be registering hundreds of websites, hundreds of domains, then obviously there are going to be some dates, registration dates that are close to each other or that are even on the same day. But certainly when you're starting out, please spread out the purchases. I know you're going to do a search like I have done in this series, and I've found 12,000 domains. I could pick probably a handful, maybe more than that, of domains that would fit in my uses, but you have to be calm and patient. Don't think that the domains that are available today are all that will be available. Okay, be patient. The longer you wait, the better the domains you may find. When hosting a PBN, you have a few different options. You could go for cheap shared hosting, cloud droplet hosting, VPS or dedicated servers, or dedicated PBN hosting. Now, there's pros and cons for each of the different types. With cheap shared hosting, as the name suggests, they tend to be cheap. They're not particularly performant, so they're not going to be overly quick. And lots of websites will be sharing the same IP as you. Now, what this can mean is that you are linked with some unsavory websites. This might not be a problem for you. In most cases, if it's just going to be a PBN for purely SEO purposes, you may not mind too much, but it's whether you want to run the risk of some of your websites just being taken out of the search results purely based on something that somebody else has done that happens to be sharing the same IP address as you're hosting. Annoyingly, this does tend to be one of the easier options for setting up, certainly for getting your website online, because the customer panels tend to be quite simple. So cloud and droplet hosting, these can be cheap for small websites that have low requirements of traffic and system resources and things like that. If your website gets bigger and more popular over time, you can extend it quite easily. This is the good side of these types of hosting, is that you can add more capacity or more RAM depending on your requirements. Obviously, a lot of PBN websites aren't going to be requiring a lot of system resources, so these can end up being quite cheap. Having your websites in a familiar system can obviously help in setting things up more quickly. The problem is having them all hosted on one cloud service provider or droplet host that's a footprint in itself. Ideally, you'd have multiple accounts, and the problem is these things can scale sometimes more. The efficiency can scale with the more websites that you have on there, so spreading them out naturally can put you in a higher price per website. So that's something to take into consideration. Now, VPS and dedicated servers, these can be really powerful. They're not always overly extendable. They can be in terms of a VPS, but a dedicated server often, to get a bigger server, you need to just move everything over to a bigger server. This can be good in the sense that you can get used to your environment and you can set it up exactly how you want. You can get the plugins and different technologies and stacks involved. It can be good if you're doing that, or if your PBN is going to be made up of big, powerful websites. For most of us, that's not the case. For most of us, the PBN websites are going to be quite simple HTML websites. They're not going to even need much more than PHP, because JavaScript can do most of it in a browser now. So I don't think a VPS or a dedicated server is going to be overly necessary. It can be expensive, certainly if you've only got a few websites. So take that into consideration as well. Also, if you're not familiar with how to set up your DNS in such a way to hide that these are all hosted on the same website, you could be setting yourself up for a really big set of footprints that you're just going to really struggle to get around. So VPS or dedicated server is probably out for PBN uses. And last, but certainly not least, probably the most important, is dedicated PBN hosting. Now, how this differs from the other types is that it essentially leverages all the other types of hosting and provides access through one easy usable panel. Now, these could be ideal for PBNs. They don't have or they don't tend to have great resources, but we only need simple hosting for most of these, so it's silly to overpay. You can actually be paying as low as a few dollars per month per website, maybe even less in some cases, and these will leverage shared hosting, cloud hosting, and sometimes even like your CMS hosting like WordPress and things of that nature. Using a PBN host is great for manageability because all of your bills will be in one place, and you'll probably have a panel that you are familiar with, or at least you become more familiar with as you use it. So the problem of spreading out over a lot of different hosts is that you never really get comfortable with how their system works, whereas when you use one dedicated PBN host, obviously it's all in one central location, and you just get more used to using. The time taken to get your website back online is going to be far lower, and so you can obviously increase your efficiency that way. Now that you've got your domain registered and set up with some hosting for it, now you're going to need to set up your DNS. Now, DNS records are a very technical thing. There are correct and incorrect ways to do it. There's certain things that you will need, like you will always need your IP records, your A and your quadruple A records set up so that the internet can find your website. Every registrar should have a guide on how to set up DNS for your web hosting. Normally this will be done through your domain registrar, but also sometimes if you have registered a domain with your web host, then normally it will just be set up for you. So having different hosts will actually vary up your DNS settings naturally, because you'll have a different IP address and they'll have different ways in which that they prefer you set up your DNS. Also, the name servers could be different as well. So that's another good thing to look out for. So this guide isn't about setting up your DNS in general, just reducing the footprints that are associated with it. There's a lot of different ways that you'll be interacting with your web host. Now, a lot of the time this will be done through FTP, in which case I'd advise using FileZilla It's a free FTP client, and once you've put in your web host, it's actually really easy to sling your files across. I actually prefer the FTP method rather than using a website to upload my files. Some people would rather have a one-click solution for, you know, installing WordPress on your domain. Often you'll be able to choose which method you'd prefer to use. You should always make sure that you have your SSL certificate set up for your web hosting. This will be done through your web host, or if you're using Cloudflare for your DNS, you can actually get Cloudflare to just handle it for you, so you don't have to set up anything on your hosting, but normally it will be done through your hosting. If you're looking to build some sort of new complicated technology on your website, some new tool or something that requires a specific tech stack or whatever, you will want to make sure that it is set up at this stage just to save you the bother later on down the line. But as I've said previously, generally a lot of these are going to be simple HTML websites or maybe PHP at a push. So most hosts will support that out of the box, and you won't need to set anything up like that. And also, as mentioned before, you'll want to set up at least one email address. You call it admin or support or contact at yourdomain.com, and then just then just forward all of your emails to a central email address so that you can receive them and manage your emails and things like that. Your website content. Now this, to me, is where things start to get a lot more interesting. Here you've got a lot of options to get your website set up. You can either do it the old school way, which is what I've done for a lot of my career, which is hand build the website, where you're going into Vim or Notepad and you're tapping away and typing all your HTML and your CSS, JavaScript and whatnot, and you're creating a website from scratch. This is very admirable, but in 2025, in my opinion, there's a lot better ways to get a PBN website done. Okay, so if you're going to be setting up a lot of websites, you want to be speeding this process up, because a lot of your profit will be dependent on how you spend your time and how long it takes you to get a website online. So you can use a template to speed things up, where you download a template from one of the many marketplaces online. This can be good for having a framework of a website. So you've already got, you know, some stock images, you've got your layout set up, and that can be really good. Make sure that you're using, if you're going to do that, that you're using a template that hasn't been used by hundreds of people before. A lot of these marketplaces will say how many downloads a template has had. Make sure that it hasn't had that many, and also once you've got it, vary it up, you know, edit it, change things around, move them around. Make sure that you're removing copyright notices, links back to anyone, that you're removing any content that would be seen as your content. So that'll be homepage content. Make sure that you've not got just the lorem ipsum text, or that you haven't got any placeholder text. Make sure it's all been edited. So that's the problem with this, is that it takes your time to make it unique to yourself. You can use themes on things like WordPress. There's different builder themes like Elementor and whatnot that you can use to create your own design. Now these are good, but again, it does take time. So there's always going to be a trade-off in either money or time invested or uniqueness. Okay. Another option is to recover the old website's content. Now, this can be good for recreating the pages that were popular when the domain was in use last. This can be really good for getting the website re-indexed very quickly, and for getting ranking as well, because you're making use of the backlinks that have been built for your domain in the past. Now the downside of this is it isn't your content, it's not your copyright. So if you do use this content, if the original copyright owner gets in touch and says, can you please stop, just take it down. I'd advise only using this as placeholder content, really. Use it for getting your website re-indexed, and then after a short while, get all of your most popular pages, the ones with the most backlinks or that have received the most traffic, get them replaced. It's okay to redirect pages that aren't receiving any traffic, don't have any backlinks. They're not that important, but the ones with the backlinks, make sure that they're always either recreated or redirected to another page. Now here's a great option for us in 2025, and that's to use AI. It seems like I'm suggesting this for a lot of different uses, but for your content and even for generating the website itself, you can use AI. I recently, as part of this series actually, I found a domain, links to rss.com. It was a previous online tool. It was one of the early SaaS tools. It was free to use for everyone, and it was quite popular in the day for getting websites and backlinks indexed in Google. The Wayback Machine snapshot for this website just showed the design. Obviously the tool itself was not working because the Wayback Machine can't understand how a tool works and recreate it. It just shows how it looked. So I took the look of it from the Wayback Machine, fed it to AI, asked it what it knew of links to rss.com, and then told it what I wanted it to recreate. And within, I think it was 2 prompts, or it may have been 3 prompts, it one-shotted the original functionality of links to RSS. In total, this was about 5 minutes work, and I had the old links to rss.com website recreated without any copyright concerns. That's the whole website created. It was re-indexed within 2 days, and it's now ranking. It's a working tool that was created with AI. Now the expectations for that version of the tool were very low. I just wanted to get something that looked right online so it can get indexed. But this is where AI is really powerful. It was able to one-shot that for me, and I just uploaded the files, not touched it since. Okay, the last option is, and I don't particularly like this because I don't see it as being more efficient than the last option, and that's to pay someone to make it for you. Now, often you'll spend a lot of time explaining to these people what it is you want and your requirements and your expectations, and then what they give you back might not be what you were expecting. It might be what you've asked for, it might not be what you were expecting. So then you have a back and forth to get what it is that you want. I actually find these days that for smaller tasks, certainly for PBN websites, the more efficient way to go about this is to tell the AI what it is you want. I find the turnaround time is just much quicker. If you're not very technical and you don't know how to design a website or code a tool online, then AI probably is the answer. Don't bother paying someone to do it with the AI for you. Just do it with the AI yourself. Cut out the middleman. When resurrecting a domain, it's always a good idea that you're making full use of the backlink profile to that domain. You need to be making sure that you are recreating the pages that have backlinks pointing to them. This is because the power of your domains is in those backlinks and their content history. So it's always a good idea to recreate those popular pages. To do this, you can use the backlink profile as provided by one of the popular SEO tools such as Majestic, DOM Detailer, Ahrefs, SEMrush. I think Moz also probably offer backlinks. So you should look at these backlink profiles and maybe even take data from a couple of those, and then make sure that the pages with backlinks to them, certainly the ones with the most backlinks, are recreated. I can't stress that enough. Recreate those pages. That's one of the most important parts. This is another area where AI can help, to be honest. If you didn't want to get AI to create the whole thing from scratch, what you can do is you can actually take the backlink profiles from these services, you can feed it into an AI. You can say, I want to recreate a website. All of the pages that have backlinks to them, I want to recreate. You can get it to create the template for you, as well as the pages and the content and all this other stuff. So use whatever tools are at your disposal. Okay, I know a lot of these services are quite expensive, so you're not going to have access to all of them. But there are people that will provide these backlink profiles for you for a small price. So as far as things that you must almost always have for your website anyway, are a privacy policy page. Okay, if you're recovering an old website, this might not be necessary, but I think for the most part these days it's a really good idea to have a privacy policy with your email address and some fake contact details, but a genuine email address on there, just because it's become a legal requirement, I believe, in certain jurisdictions. So as a result, Google tends to act as if these things are required everywhere. So it's just a good idea to make sure that you've got a privacy policy page. The contact us page, you want to have a contact us page just with, again, any old contact details. Doesn't have to be genuine, but make sure that it's got an email address that is genuine, just so that people can contact you. Because if there is things like, if there's a copyright claim or something, you want to deal with that at the early stages and just take it down rather than it progress and anger anyone. It's easier to just go, yep, I'll take it down, and then replace it with something that AI is thrown together for you. This is a PBN website. This is not your money site. You're not looking to make millions from it. You don't need it to be perfect. It just needs to be good and look real. And another thing, you should always have a sitemap file. This will allow Google to know what files you've got, and also I feel like search engines are looking at the sitemap file when a domain goes back online and finding the pages on your website through the sitemap file. So I think it's a really good idea to get that online. Almost every website has one anyway, so by not having a sitemap or having a sitemap file that doesn't work is a really it's a misstep, really. You shouldn't do it. And the last thing that I think every website needs is an SSL certificate. Okay, in 2025, 2026, this is definitely going to be something that you will need. It will impact your rankings if you don't have a valid SSL certificate set up. They're free, they're not going to cost you anything, they're easy to set up, they don't take long, so just get it set up and then you'll be compliant, and Google will shower you with visitors if you're lucky. As for reindexing your website, if you've made a good choice with your domain and you've done your due diligence, you've seen that it's got good content, it's not been spammed, that you do have some good quality backlinks, you shouldn't find that you need to do a great deal of reindexing. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I registered a domain and put some content on there and didn't have it ranking within days. Okay, it's normally a couple of days. I've seen them take as much as 4 or 5 days before. This doesn't tend to be much of a problem. Obviously, there's no guarantees in SEO. Google can change the way that they work tomorrow without any sort of warning. We aren't clairvoyants. I can't tell you what it's going to be like in the future, and I can't even predict how Google will react based on any given domain. However, like I say, I haven't seen it for good domains. I just find they get indexed and they just work from there. They're so easy to get indexed. I've never had to, and wouldn't advise anyone even ping their website to get reindexed. Let the search engines do it, and once you notice that they've been reindexed, give it a couple of weeks and then start adding content to it, or adding backlinks to it. You can add content straight away to your website. Do what you want with it. Don't let Google tell you what to do with your property. Who do they think they are? After you've got the website uploaded, you've got your DNS set up, everything's back online, the best thing to do, honestly, step away, just take a step back for a bit. At this point, you can start thinking about the content that you're going to put on the website, the partners that you want to backlink to, whether you're going to be selling backlinks, all these other things. But the best thing for you to do is to leave it alone for a little bit. You don't want to touch the website, you don't want to ping it, you don't want to set up any backlinks for it. You can add content to it, but even that, I'd just wait, just let it get online, let it get noticed by the search engines, and just let things warm up again. It seems to be a good way that people have been running PBNs for a long time now, or using expired domains in general for a long time. You can post to socials, but I'd advise not doing. You want to make it seem like the owner's just come back after a short hiatus and they've just put the website back online and they're just trying to find their feet. They're not going to be hitting the ground running, with backlinks hitting all over the major news publications and things like that. So maybe some light socials, but just keep it light. Generally, just walk away for a bit. Leave it. I actually often find this can be one of the better times to plan things out for the future, as well as look for more domains that I might want to use later on down the line. This wouldn't really be with a view to buy any other domains, but looking for domains when you don't need a domain, I find is a good time to find domains to buy, because you'll find that when you have a project in mind, you're looking for a domain, you're desperate to find a domain for that project so that you can move on to the next step. I prefer not to spend weeks looking for domains. I want to find it now and I want to get on with my day. Now that's all good and well, but that means that you can be a bit too eager to buy a domain. So you want to find a brilliant domain everywhere you look. You know, you're like, oh, is that domain good? Is that domain good? I want that one. I want that one. Just because you need that domain. So now's a good time to look. So look for domains, because you're going to pass over all those ones that are probably all right, but they're all right. You don't want an all right domain. You want a great domain. You want something that's going to really improve the power of your PBN. So now is a good time to look, not necessarily with a view to buy, but if you stumble across something amazing, you can get it. After a couple of weeks of your website being online and you've noticed that it's been re-indexed, hopefully the indexes calm down a little bit. You'll often find that your website will get, say it's a large website and you get 100 pages re-indexed within a couple of days. You might find that after a week that 100 pages has become 50 pages. You might notice after a week that that's become 20 pages. Don't be too concerned. That's not Google finding your website and then blocking it. It's Google finding the website going, oh, we've got all these web pages, and then realizing actually some of these category pages or some of this information is repeated. So it's just figuring out the index. After some time, maybe a couple of weeks, then you can start creating some backlinks to it, start reaching out to other people in your niche to maybe get some backlinks. Generally, you're probably going to be looking at getting some cheap backlinks to it. You don't want to be spending too much time and money on these websites. Remember at all times that these PBN websites are meant to be promoting or giving an SEO boost to your money site. You're not meant to be spending days, weeks, months, however long, setting up websites and creating vast plumes of content for these websites. Okay, you probably want to create some content, create some backlinks, but drip feed it over the year. Don't rush it all at the beginning. Drip feed it, make it look like a natural website, like someone's a hobbyist in that topic and they just, they've had a thought one weekend. Do it like that. Make it look natural. Natural is slow and steady. Natural isn't all in your face at once. Okay, so that's episode 4 in the bag. We've looked at registering the domain and going all the way up to getting a working website with content and a plan for its future development. Make sure to check out the free download in the description for our standard operating procedures for registering and setting up and hosting your website. It will be a really invaluable tool for you to know if everything you're doing is correct. Episode 5 will be coming soon. So get subscribed for that one if you want to be informed. It's probably going to be a bit more technical than this video. I'm going to be going through the exact steps that I would take to recreate a website. I'm going to show a few of the different methods that we talked about in this video. And so you're going to be able to see an example basically of the different ways in which that you can create a website. I might even handcraft a website. Probably won't. I'll get an AI to create something for me and I'll pretend that I've created it. Standard operating procedures download. Seriously, get it. It's a great resource. And I'll also be doing a write-up on this video on our guide section of the Domain Hunter Gatherer website. So go check that out as well. If you've got any questions, always forget, if you've got any questions whatsoever, stick them in the comment section. Whether you're a customer of DHG or not, I'm always happy to help. I love getting in touch with people and finding out what it is that people are using in SEO these days and what works for them. So yeah, get in touch, get subscribed, like, whatever. I don't know what YouTube people do. So yeah, any questions, put them in the comment section below. I've been replying to everyone that's posted, so hopefully I've not missed anyone. There's not been that many. I can't imagine I have. But yeah, get in touch, and cheers for watching. See you in the next one.